Hello and welcome back to another lesson in class, which stands for creativity, logic, art, science, and spirituality. To think that I've been doing this now for 2 years on YouTube, along with a couple other things like finding freedom. And I got the little memory today, I think it was on TikTok or YouTube. It said that I published the first one on perspective and perception back in 2024 on January 2nd. So going on 2 years now. So that's been fun. It's been an interesting experience, but yeah, this is something I've been passionate about for quite some time, and decided to share some stuff with you guys. Did I get into trouble while sharing all this stuff because people didn't like what I said, so they wanted to impede on my First Amendment rights? Sure, still going through that whole process. But if you got anything out of class, go ahead and smash that like and subscribe button, and please share it with other people, because this is not just for my own self-regurgitation or whatever the case or whatever people may be telling you, but this is also to benefit those that are younger, that have a misunderstanding or that are misguided, or that might stumble upon this, hopefully like my niece and nephew, if they ever get to see it, or unless Google goes out of business by the time they get older and they have to, sell YouTube and everything else, so on and so forth, etc. But let's get into lesson 48, all right? So we are always being watched. Now, what does that mean exactly? Well, how do ads know what you talk about? I mean, think about it. If you ever mention something and an advertisement actually came up with the thing that you were discussing, or an advertisement came up and you're like, I was just talking about that with somebody else, etc. Well, that's because your phone is always listening to you. Now, it also depends on the platform and the terms of service and the applications that you have either installed or pre-installed on your phone that allows this to happen, and you give it permission, obviously, when you sign up or download the application itself. It's within the clause. In law, it would probably be known as fine print or whatever the case may be. The information is buried in there. So my question to you is, if the advertisements are able to know this, why should you fear anything or fear speaking out? Well, think about it. We have large language models and everything else. Don't you think it'll be able to not only know what you're saying, but translate it as well based upon the information and data collected from everybody that has access to that? Exactly. So let's get into point number 2. How do certain things get mentioned on media, but other things only get shared primarily, or should I say privately, with select people and never mentioned on the air? Well, that's very interesting. See, the media, especially news today, they all have a script. Right? So if you work for a company, they all have a script. They have to, all sync up and so on and so forth, so that when people check sources and things like that, they all say the same thing. So it would be able to validate whatever was heard, so on and so forth, which is the greatness of, podcasts and independent journalists now, because they're also able to do more digging for you, such as Patrick Bet-David, Candace Owens, Joe Rogan, and the interviews that they do. You have Dr. Jordan Peterson, who goes in depth on other topics and political topics around the world. You have, what is his name? Michael Baker, right? Or Mike Baker, so on and so forth. He really goes into politics and stuff like that. You have other people, because you got to remember, shows like The View, that are the news, ABC. I'm sure if Anderson Cooper started his own YouTube channel along with a couple other reporters or journalists and broke off, he would not only be as successful, but probably make more money and be more credible because of, the bravado, the gravitas and clout that he also brings along with him, and his reputation. So think about that. What if somebody like that became an independent journalist and told you all the other stuff that, is not getting mentioned? Would you pay attention? Probably. Right? And then, of course, how come certain things are only shared privately, or they're never mentioned on air? Well, because there may be other things that, may be questionable. Maybe somebody paid somebody to not say something, etc. Maybe it would make a certain vertical or industry look poorly in the eyes of whom want to be a part of that industry, right? So you have to look at it from that perspective, because money, well, makes the world go round. And if you mess with someone's money, just like in history, anything else, if you mess with somebody's time, energy, attention, whatever, money is another form of time, right? Then you can upset people dramatically, a lot, so on and so forth. It's actually the ways you get punished in the military is normally they'll tax you, or not tax you, but that's a slang term. They will punish you, and they will either uh, take away your time, put you on restrictions, so on and so forth, etc., or send you to the brig, depending how the severity, etc. So that's your time right there, right? Your freedom gone. Your energy and attention, well, they'll penalize your pay. They'll either cut it in half or take it away. That's another thing. And then they could also demote you, and so on and so forth. So now, did you not only get a pay cut or reduced down to half pay, so on and so forth, but you also got a demotion. So until you pick up a rank again, you're going to, well, be paid less. And then, of course, you have that on your record. So, things like that also occur. But if you're able to prove yourself correct, or go to court martial, or whatever the case may be, they may be more lenient and loosen up certain things, or not do anything at all. But if something's been going on for a prolonged period of time, obviously people say stop, stop, stop. And then, of course, years later, they want to continue. Well, then it's only on them, and it's only fair that, well, you get punished, right? Because you are not smart enough to stop, right? It's like the scientist that wants to keep going till something explodes in their face, and they're like, okay, we'll never do that again. But then again, why does it take an explosion in order to get the point across, right? So let's move forward to the third point. Do spiritual people still pray with everything listening? So again, I ask you the question, why fear, right? If all these things can hear you, as you speak, so on and so forth, then do you still pray, right? Do you meditate? Do you do it through thought, right? In meditation, you empty your mind, so on and so forth, and you put yourself in a more calm, relaxed state. Sometimes for therapeutic purposes, people will speak to themselves, or so on and so forth, right? This is another form of prayer, so on and so forth. However, if you were to address or say God or whoever is listening, so on and so forth, then it puts it into another realm, psychologically speaking, unless there is a physical person there. So you have to understand that if everything is listening, everything is monitored, everything is being watched, so on and so forth, and you think you're going to get by or be slick with something, well, it's going to be extremely difficult. Just because of the amount of technology and everything else that's out there. So why fear praying? Why fear saying that you're spiritual? Why put yourself in a category when it's a continuous story built upon everything, right? And actually, last night I was reading the Ethiopian Bible, which has been popular online for a little bit. So I ordered it. It has 88 books versus the 66. Not to think Star Wars, Order 66 and all that, but it has 88 books, the Book of Enoch and all that. And I was like, this is extremely fascinating, because if people also read these things included on top of everything, then they would see the progression, right? But it is what it is. So just wanted to point that out there. Now let's move to point number 4, right? So point number 3, just to recap, do spiritual people still pray with everything listening? And then, of course, if yes or no, then do you fear stating the truth out loud because everything is listening? So you still hold stuff in, which builds up negative emotions, tension, stress on the internal structure, nervous system, cranium, that would be your brain, your prefrontal cortex, because it's sitting top of mind, so on and so forth, etc. Whatever the case may be. 2, how do certain things get mentioned on media, but other things only get shared privately and never mentioned on the air, right? Remember the example with other stuff, and then if other people wanted to be independent journalists like Anderson Cooper, I'm sure people would take his word as credibility, so on and so forth, etc. And then, of course, the first one was, how do ads know what you talk about? And then, of course, I always ask the question, why fear, right? So let's get into point number 4. If people already know things suck, why not fix it together? So think about this, right? If you're not scared and you're willing to do all this other stuff, right? You know, whether it's good or bad, and you know things suck, why not link up with other people that think things suck and make things better? It's not rocket science, right? It really isn't. I mean, why not link up with other people that are like minded, that have similar resources or similar knowledge, intellect, wisdom, whatever, insight, and then combine your powers together like you're building Captain freaking Planet and make things better? Why feel so comfortable and stuck and only live to complain about how things suck versus coming together and making them better? You want to grow your business, but you don't want to trust a consultant or contractor, right? So you try to do things yourself, or it's too expensive, so you don't know if it's going to work, right? But you then go out and party and blow hundreds of dollars on whatever, right? Alcohol, drinks, food, wining and dining people, etc., right? To build business within sales when you could have marketed first, which is like, well, I'll give you the example utilizing large language models, right? When it comes to large language models, you get a better answer if you prompt the large language model, whether that's ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude, to, well, come in with a certain mindset or vernacular or collective mind of something, right? For instance, actually, no. For instance, if you were to see ChatGPT's answer and the differentiation of answers before and after being prompted to act in such a way, well, then you will also understand how marketing occupies the brain, has ideas or thoughts sit top of mind, and then when you come across those individuals again, you can tap onto that, so on and so forth, similar to like a hypnotic induction, so on and so forth, right? They don't know where they got the idea from, but the idea is there, and so they decided to act upon it, just like anything else, right? So let's continue. That was point number 4. If people already know things suck, why not fix it together? All right. So let's see here. All right. Point number 5. What is the point of belief? Okay, let's start over. What is the point of belief if it is only going to not get respected, like the belief of the Constitution, right? What's the point in it, right? If you don't believe in one thing, right? You don't. If I place a dollar bill on the thing on a table, right? And actually, I think I have a dollar bill right here, right? Just for emphasis purposes, to emphasize certain things. And we started getting on the topic, and I wanted to get into your psyche, right? I would show you a dollar bill, right? And then I would start drawing attention to different parts of the dollar bill. You have the pyramid with the all-seeing eye. You have "In God We Trust." You have the eagle. You have the arrows with the talons. You have the stars, etc. Now, if I want to learn more about you, your psyche, or whatever the hell it is that you're trying to dig for when it comes to information, you would probably get stuck on one of these things and either say you care or don't care about that thing, whether it's "In God We Trust." Oh, I don't care about that, this, that, and the third. Okay, that's fine. What about the all-seeing eye and the pyramid, right? If you're doing thumbnails and things like that with the one eye showing, as you've seen in magazines, etc., well, do you care about that, right? Does that mean you're intelligent? Does that mean you're enlightened? Does that mean you have a luminous ideology of the world, so on and so forth, right? And then, of course, you have the eagle, and then the stars, and then the arrows. What do you get caught up on? Now, if you say you don't care about any of it, and I turn the dollar bill around, right, and I show you and I point to the president, right, who's George Washington, right? And you say, I don't care about that either. Well, if you don't care about the picture of the president, you don't care about anything on the back or the symbols, do you care if, I don't know, you take all the money out of your bank account and hand it to me? Because I could do a lot more good with it since you don't care about it. You clearly don't really want it or need it. The president is a human being. That's human capital, which generates, functionality and innovation within the economy, the belief system of the all-seeing eye, the pyramids, the mystery and wonders of, well, in God we trust, and what is God, so on and so forth, the beliefs in the revolving of the eagle with the stars and the arrows and the belief system that revolves around that, along with the American flag and everything else. And then, of course, just the fact that it's green, so you don't care about anything that's green, clearly. I could show you parts of this park that, it's a little dirty or whatever, but you don't care about that. So can I have all your money and we could put it to use somewhere else, since you don't care about it? Nor do you care about anything that it represents or could represent. Right? Because as I said earlier, within business, if you want to grow your company, you need to trust the consultant, right? So on and so forth. You want to add stuff to your house, build your patio. You got to trust the contractors. They're going to do a proper job, right? And not nickel and dime you, so on and so forth. But if you don't care about that, then what's the point in belief in general, or the belief in anything, right? If we're just cogs in a wheel. But then they state that, but you need cogs to operate a business. It's the cost of goods sold. And that's your hourly paid salary, not salaried paid people, right? Because time is money. They understand that, right? So you have cogs, cost of goods sold. Salary is completely different on an accounting spreadsheet. I'm pretty confident on that because I also have a degree in accounting, or finance, I should say, and studied it well. So normally when they make cuts at large organizations, they cut salary workers, not normally hourly workers, because the hourly workers are sacrificing their time. So they could finish early, they could finish late, but they stop. A salaried worker will have to work for an allotted amount of time unless deemed that it's not necessary, or it's, whatever. So you either get paid for results, or you get paid for your time, or you get paid to sell your time, so on and so forth, etc. There's trade-offs to everything, and there's benefits to everything. You just have to weigh out your options. Now let's move forward. If the Constitution is BS, then what foundation do people base their choices off of? So if you don't believe, and I just pulled out the dollar bill, right? If you don't believe in that, and you don't believe in the Constitution, like the First Amendment rights, Third and Fourth, Fifth, etc., or the Bill of Rights amendments and everything else, then how are you basing your choices? Now, there's a bunch of kids here screaming, and they're expressing their freedom of speech, right? The freedom to express oneself, which is covered through the First Amendment right. But most people just hear freedom of speech when it comes to the Constitution, don't realize that covers expression. So if I want to act or speak or present in a certain light or way, it's okay and deemed okay by, the documentation. But if you don't believe in that or care for it, then who cares? And who cares about anything else, right? This is why people will bitch, moan, and complain about what sucks, never pair up with other people and make things better. They'll just live to complain. They'll say, I wish things were better. I wish somebody else would do something about it. Well, why don't you start with you and find some other people, address them, etc., speak to them, and maybe things could get done. But without communication, nothing's going to get fucking done. So let's keep going. So if you guys remember, there was one of the lessons that had something about hearing with your eyes and seeing with your ears, right? And why is this? I said to hear with your eyes, right? So if you were to hear with your eyes, what does that mean? If I were to show you a painting, what would you see, etc., and what would formulate in your brain? It's like the song Pocahontas, right? When she talks about the colors of the wind, right? But you can't see the wind, right? But what does she mean by the colors of the wind, right? This could be your pitch, your tonality. Remember, it's not how you said it, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. The colors of the wind, so on and so forth. It's not how the movie was directed and produced, it's also how the theme music came in, along with everything else and the theatrics that fell along with it, so on and so forth. So remember that. because your eyes and ears can work both ways, so on and so forth, if you train it as such. If you hear a jingle, is it change or is it keys sitting at the bottom of a purse or bag, right? How do you know the difference? Well, you learn tonality and different sounds, and then you realize, oh, that sounds like keys, this sounds like change, the density, whatever the case may be, however your brain works, and then you could decipher, oh, the keys are in this bag because it sounds like they're, so let me search thoroughly, and then magically you find the keys, right? So fools and hunger are everywhere, and sex sells. Remember this quote: loose lips can get tips or sink ships. Let me say that again. Fools and hunger are everywhere, right? So in certain contexts, people would say a sucker's born every minute, so on and so forth, etc. But then again, people are hungry around the world, so they'll normally, because hungry meaning broke, whatever the case may be, actually wanting food, whatever. But if fools and hunger are everywhere, then you have to be weary of your surroundings, right? Why is that? Well, sex sells. Whether you're male, female, gay, straight, heterosexual, transsexual, whatever the case may be, sex sells. And once somebody finds your type and deems you to be a fool, they can leverage that against you, right? They could drain your pockets. They can milk you for whatever. They could call you whatever they want to because ay papacito, so on and so forth, etc. Not to knock on them, but oh babe, how's it going? Hey love, what's going on? Blah blah blah. And they sweet talk, right? So on and so forth. And then they get you to say stuff, right? Loose lips, right? And then, of course, other people will come up to them and question them. Hey, did you hook up with this person? Did you do this with that person? Well, first of all, why are you asking so many questions specifically just about me when there's other people that did the same thing up in this location? Unless you don't want to know about that. You just want to know about one specific person. Then that makes it a personal issue because now you're singling someone out in comparison to every other swinging person that came in here, right? So loose lips can get tips, right? So if a person works as a barista, so on and so forth, and he or she is giving information, etc., you can tip them. Why? Well, one, tips are tax-free now, so that goes toward them and their pocket. But if they tell you the wrong piece of information and you go to report that, and now that backfires, it could also sink the whole thing, right? Or the information that you get isn't what you want, and it could sink the whole ship, right? Oh, you sunk my battleship. Just like that, right? Malinformation can cost an investor a crap ton of money. You don't believe me? Go talk to an investor who got the wrong tip from the wrong loose lips or wrong insider trading details or the wrong open source knowledge, so on and so forth, and see how fast their investment got canked, right? Canceled, sunk the ship, etc. Killed the investment portfolio because of a bad piece of information. Think about it. So, moving forward, offenses should not equal an offense, right? Let me say that again. An offense should not equal an offense. If you're playing football or any type of sport, so on and so forth, you have offense and defense. If you're doing martial arts, there's different offensive attacks, right? And then there's also defensive attacks, and then some that come at the same time, depending on the style in which that you study. So think about your beats per minute, your heart rate versus your emotion. Both can be manipulated, right? You can control both with thought and speech, but how, right? So people will hear words, right? This, that, and the third. And this is why people sometimes think military people are, oh, you're just so sarcastic. Oh, I don't like your attitude. Oh, it's the way you sound, your mouth, this, that, and the third. My mother's notorious for this, along with a couple people that never been out of a fucking box. So we come off as sarcastic sometimes because we're taught to turn a negative into a positive. Your friends get deployed. Not all your friends come back. Some end up in a fucking casket, etc. Right? So when the sorrow or the negativity starts to dip too low, we kick into sarcasm to bring everything back up. Those who are never been around that, or that like to abuse or like to misuse or mistreat the knowledge in which that they gain, will misinterpret and misunderstand this as them being just an asshole or a dick, so on and so forth. When in actuality, they're changing not only their own psychology with the words they are saying, but the psychology of the other people in the room, trying to, well, shift the thought pattern, right? Which will also shift the emotional structure in the brain and the signals being released, as well as the beats per minute, i.e., the signals that go through the central nervous system that impact the heart. If you're stressed out or you're anxious or you have anxiety or excitement, your heart rate is going to fluctuate, right? There's going to be small flutters, there's going to be different electrical outputs, etc. Any doctor or somebody in that field can dictate that and jot it down for you, or you can ask, I don't know, ChatGPT, go to a medical library, etc., and it'll explain the same thing, right? So when your beats per minute, right, your heart rate's getting up, you can feel your emotions kicking in, whether you're getting angry, upset, sad, so on and so forth. Remember, both can be manipulated, whether technologically or verbally, right? So how do you counteract that? Well, there's different ways. Sarcasm is one of those ways, right? When somebody starts getting a little bit too fluffy or crazy, you want to, well, nip it in the butt. And if you don't nip it in the butt quick, right, then it's going to prolong, right? Because the average person can stay sad for a certain amount, a certain amount of time, right? Anything after that is either self-induced or, you know, manipulated. How do I say this? If you are listening to 15 minutes straight of sad music, and then you go to hit refresh on your music playlist, and then for some reason the algorithm picks up and puts sad music there, well, that's a technological thing taking advantage of understanding or trying to understand your behavior and psychological state and saying this person must want to hear more sad music. If you put happy music on or different music, well, guess what? About 15-20 minutes into it, if you hit refresh, even if it's on YouTube or whatever, it'll change the algorithmic pattern and it'll show you something that is similar to that, right? If you're in a group, if you're with people, if you're out in public at a bar and you see people being aggressive, asking too many questions, because there's a point where people ask certain questions and you're just like, I'm worried. What is going on? Are you this? Is something wrong? Should I know something? Etc. I'm not getting paid to train you right now, or I'm not getting paid for this, so how can I help you because you're impeding on my time and that's valuable, right? I can easily go to the store, grab a bottle for, let's say, $20, $30 of whatever the hell I'm drinking here, between that costs, what, $5 to $10 a shot or whatever, which would be a lot cheaper. But I'm trying to enjoy myself in this establishment, so what the fuck do you want, right? Or you can say it a different way. But that's up to you, right? So you have to understand these things, right? Or if somebody comes up and they start talking crap, so on and so forth, you can say, hey, sweetness, what's going on? I hear you talking a lot. Is there something you want to say out loud, or were you just trying to get my attention because, you haven't even bought me a drink yet? You could say that, right? Or maybe you should try to buy me dinner before you try to, screw me over, so on and so forth, right? Change the vocabulary, change the tone, change everything in the pitch and delivery, create a hiccup psychologically in the person's brain, and then of course you can move forward. If they're aiming to entrap you or entice you or blackmail you into doing something, taking an action, make sure you not only have proof, but let them know, I'm going to record this, and then they're going to say something like, oh, I don't want to be recorded. I don't care, I do. And so I will record this whole thing, so on and so forth, just in case it escalates and somebody in here that wants to ask too many questions and be in someone's life is curious, right? Because why? Because they didn't study botany, they only studied agriculture because there's a lot of farms around here. Anyways, moving forward, technology with psychology can control individuals. Now, I just shared a video with a couple people of how they were doing brain manipulation with technology and things like that, using different types of pieces of technology that affect the electromagnetic spectrum, signals in the brain that could be manipulated either with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, etc., along with the fact that you can also tap into somebody's Wi-Fi or whatever, or their own signal, even with smart light bulbs, and hack into their system and create a 3D map of their whole house, right? So if people think that they're getting away with something, they're really not, right? And then, of course, they have other cool pieces of technology, right? And certain aspects or climates, they have something called a cavity search, or putting a muzzle on somebody, where sometimes they will tamper with the electromagnetic spectrum. I know this sounds crazy, but it does happen. And you'll feel as though that you need to get a cavity or a root canal. And then the dentist will say, yeah, you got to get a cavity or a root canal because money rules the world, so they're not going to disagree. Go get the root canal. Now we got to put a crown, but that crown is also a technological device that runs off of your body's energy. Now, mind you, in the movie The Matrix, they talked about how much energy the body actually produces. And if it's touching or tapped into the root system, right, your nervous system, because apparently during the root canal, they remove the root, but it still stays there, then it's able to feed off that, or it could feed off of heat, right? Which is what? Solar panels, geothermal energy, so on and so forth. So they'll be able to power a small device like a crown, right? Like a crown or tooth implant, right? And then they could use that to cross-reference with other things in your vicinity, whether that's your cell phone, your Wi-Fi, your location, etc., to make sure that they have eyes and points of contact on someone at all times. So what's the purpose and need of this type of surveillance? Well, then they're probably scared of you and worried because it can lead to something positive or negative, and they just want to know how to control you, or they will try to control you. Right? And you don't have to take my word for this, right? You can also see that there's headphones out there, not like these, but ones that go just forward, right? And this is one of the reasons why I wore this right now, right? So the jawbone, the line right here, right on the skull, it sits right around there. And what it does is these headphones, and you can look it up, I think they're called jawbone headphones or something like that. They will send vibrations into that area where your listening capacity goes to, and then you'll be able to interpret music that way, leaving the ear canal free from any type of, well, thing, right? Plugging up, etc. So think about that, right? So if people are able to be controlled with technology and psychology, now ask, what is tech and psychology? And how do I say this? It says here, what does it say? PB. Well, peanut butter jelly, right? Can you control who goes to jail, who doesn't go to jail, who goes to prison, and who doesn't? If you want cheap labor and you want to treat someone like Nikola Tesla, right, and screw them over with their inventions and everything else, and say you're going to pay them $50,000, like Thomas Edison said, never pay them, steal their idea, and then whatever, call the person a lunatic, etc., to protect yourself as well as look horrible, well, then that's on you. But when the other side starts playing the game back and you start playing harder, and now all you get is your friends and everybody else to start chiming in and assisting you, you're just implicating all of them, especially with the amount of technology that's out there today. And if it was sanctioned, I would love to speak to the judge or judges that signed off on this frivolous matter or this whole thing in general and say, do you think this is humane or correct or right? Being that you understand my experience, my background, I got to peek behind the curtain, influenced and trained by some of the best that are out there. Not to say that there aren't other people, but do you not understand, or did you not ask any questions before you signed the warrant? Right? What drove your decision? Did you know they were going to entice, entrap, etc., because of X, Y, and Z, going against First Amendment rights, probably telling you a story so that they can enact other things in order to give them more leverage and more open access to things? It's like the movie Mile 22 with Mark Wahlberg, right? Where he's like, oh, we need oversight, which pretty much allows them to do whatever the hell they need to in order to finish and accomplish the job. And then it backfires. I mean, think about it. Just think about it. Most people aren't educated in certain fields, especially judges. They are educated on the law, not particular verticals in which the law is practiced, whether that would be medical, business, etc., constitutional law, etc. Right? So think about that. Now, moving forward, now that you, let's see here, now that you have understanding, choose to be happy as well as what should matter or not. Then make a list, right, first, after you make your list, bring understanding to each thing. So, now that you have understanding, you have to choose. Do you want to be depressed? Do you want to keep taking medication for depression because they keep telling you that that's what you need to do? Or do you want to get on a fucking treadmill, be around happier people, change your environment, your settings, so on and so forth, realize you don't need the medication, you just needed to get off your ass, go out and play, probably take a nap like some kids do every once in a while, feel refreshed after, 20, 30-minute nap or whatever, maybe a little longer, who cares, right? And then, of course, getting exercise because it moves everything else in the body and stop being lazy, right? So, do you want to be happy? Well, then choose to be happy and figure out ways to accomplish that. And then what matters and what doesn't matter, really, right? Who do you want around in your life that matters, or the things, etc., that matter, and who doesn't, right? Who brings you joy or tries to steal it away? Who tries to say, I don't want to be a punching bag, but they're actually treating you like one? I feel like I got to walk on eggshells, but every time you open your mouth, you're the one walking on eggshells. I don't want to do that, blah, blah, blah. And they're just playing a dumb game, right? So it's like telling a little kid a piece of information. They say thank you. They run off, go snitch that information to someone else, and then you get in trouble, so on and so forth. And then they don't know why, down the line, they're in a crazy house, so on and so forth. But the person that gave you the information is perfectly fine, which is weird, right? Anyways, now that you have this understanding, I want you to make a list, right? And then after you make a list of the stuff that matters and doesn't matter, etc., when you're making your choice, bring understanding to each thing on the list, right? So I want to be happy. Well, what does that entail? Bring understanding to it. Well, I want to be happy, and I want to, so on and so forth. I know I hate going to the gym, but I'm going to go to the gym. I hate doing this, but I'm going to change it, right? I like going to the gym, but I don't like doing leg day because I don't like, it hurts too much, or I'm not that type of person, but I know I got to do it, so on and so forth, right? Or I hate doing cardio, but I know that it's really good for me, and I'll probably be a hell of a lot happier and less frustrated in the day because a lot of my stress and energy will come out during cardio or the, different types of workouts that I'll do, etc., right? So bring an understanding. Why is that? Well, because I would have less energy later on to focus on other stuff, right? So simplicity is key. If everything is both, what's the problem, right? A positive needs a negative, right? So internally, in your psychology, you both have masculine and femininity, right? So some people will make fun of men and say, oh, they're in their feelings when they're listening to a certain type of music, trying to call them, i.e. gay or whatever. People are retarded. Or they will say, oh, this person has toxic masculinity because of the way he's speaking. But DMX, who is a hip-hop artist, made boatloads of dollars speaking that way, right? And it impacted a lot of people. You just don't like it because kids are saying it. That's weird. You didn't like the way kids were saying it, right? Because the other day I was actually driving around with some people and I was like, oh, have you seen the 6'7" trend, right? And they're like, yeah, I'm tired, I'm over it, it's so stupid, what does it even mean anyways, blah, blah, blah. And it was funny because I asked them if they understood that. They said no, but the way it was presented by the children, it didn't seem appealing until I played Lil Wayne's song 6 Foot, 7 Foot, and in there it literally says 6'7", right? Which is quite comical. It's just the way that it's presented that gets accepted or not within psychology and society as a whole as a sociological structure. So if you don't understand that, and you don't understand a lot of the other things that are going on because you want to sneak around, ask questions without having an understanding because you want to figure it out yourself. And this is what I've seen, not with everybody, but when it was pointed out to me, this was a long time ago, bad detectives or people that watch too many TV shows as being detectives or whatever the case, are doing investigations. They have like spoof videos of the person doing something and he has the people that are watching over him on camera, etc. And it's just comical and funny, right? And it gets regurgitated. So without actually looking or asking questions to understand, because you're trying to, well, be discreet or whatever the case, and then somebody says, hey, are you a cop? I know this company says this on your vehicle, but are you this? Do you have a warrant? Are you law enforcement? Be real specific, right? Are you a private investigator, right? They don't have to answer because, well, they don't have to. They can walk away or do whatever. They can also lie if sanctioned as such. That's why I stated earlier to record everything so that when it does go to court or law authorities and officials show up, you can also show them the recording as well, right? Or you can say, oh, I'm going to prove that my day has been psychologically manipulated based upon signals intelligence, people tracking me, surveillance, etc., to implant thoughts. So I'm going to call it out now, and then I'm going to document my day and show you everything that I'm going to do along that day and point out certain things as it goes. But I'm going to record that in the morning so that when I go through my day, so on and so forth, if I see it, I'm going to point it out, probably take a picture or whatever, and then I'm going to post that everywhere, so on and so forth. So people get the idea, the gist, right? Now, you can do that as a self-defense strategy because if anything does go to court and they ask for evidence, well, it's already in the public domain and open source information is legal. So, anyways, this has been lesson 48 of class. Now, if I remember correctly, there's 11 points in this, right? So the significance of 11, well, if you're in numerology or anything else, 11 could be significant, right? And then, of course, this was written, well, the last page you can see here was December, right? December 31st. Not to say anything, but December, which would be the 12th month, 11, the 11th month, or dealing with something else, law, or whatever the case may be. Simplified, that's 3 and 2. Well, 3 times 2 is 6. 3 plus 5 is, well, 3 plus 2 is 5. And if you say you got 5 on it, or you're a actual Marine and you served with the Marines, you would say, oh, give them 1. And they would say, kill, as a props, not as a command to neutralize or murder or whatever the case may be. It was just the way that we respond, right? Turning a negative into a positive, as I stated earlier, with sarcasm, but most people don't understand that. And if you understand that, well, 3 and 2 come out to 5 and 6, which also comes out to 11, so on and so forth. When added together, you would understand the humor there, because the 6th commandment, as I stated with spirituality and belief and stuff like that earlier, is thou shalt not murder or thou shalt not kill. Either way, you shouldn't do either one. But if you're going to entice somebody, you're going to build a lot of stuff, psychologically, sociologically, etc., just to entrap them. Remember, you're gambling and playing with rules and laws that you probably don't understand nor care for. And then when things backfire, it's only going to be worse for the individual that did not read to understand, right? They only read to respond. And that's the problem with most people now, not only within conversation and the world around us. We have conversations just to respond, not to actually understand what people are saying. So, hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. I will see you guys in the next lesson of class, which I think will be lesson 49. So, till next time, my friends, take care. Peace.